Welcome back. For many, the festive season is a time for family and friends. But what of those who have a tough time dealing with this very season? For some, the festive season is filled with isolation, grief, and feelings of loneliness. To discuss how to survive the festive season blues, I'm joined by clinical psychologist Reginald Mahlatji. Reginald, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. Now, how would you define festive withdrawal or festive depression, and what distinguishes it from other forms of depression?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all the viewers. Thanks for having me to your show. This is a very important topic, especially because of the time we currently find ourselves in. So first, when we talk about depression, we first and foremost need to focus on tackling two matters related to this concept. It's first, the stigma related to mental health, and then secondly, some of the misconceptions. So when people talk about mental illness, oftentimes the view or the concept is related to terms like crazy, weak, or fragile or flawed. And this is what still persists among today's society related to mental illness. However, this needs to be challenged, and I'm grateful that I can have this opportunity to provide some of the powerful truths related to depression, and specifically also related to mental illness, is that it is no different from any physical illness. In fact, it is part of, being human. Just like one would have a flu, for example, and that you wouldn't consider that person to have any character flaws or defects. It's just a normal part of being human. The same with depression, for example. And when we talk about depression is actually, the misconception is oftentimes, especially because of social media, people associate depression with just feelings of sadness. Although that could be true, but then there's a distinction between sadness and depression. Sadness is something that's absolutely normal. For example, after being disappointed by something, you went for an interview and then you feel down and disappointed because you didn't get the job that you were hoping and expecting to get. And that's an absolutely normal feeling to have. But depression, on the other hand, is a persistent kind of sadness, is a sadness that persists and is unrelenting. And this affects your daily functioning. And then you begin to lose interest in certain things that you used to enjoy. So there are different kinds of depression. And in particular, today, we're talking about the one related to the festive season. And this kind of depression relates a lot to even what you highlighted there, is feelings like feeling overwhelmed by everything that's happening, because it's such a busy time. There's so many expectations from family, from friends. People are traveling, people are reviewing their year, people are, in a sense, taking an inventory. What did I achieve? Did I achieve this? You begin to compare yourself with other people, and you begin to measure yourself. And this can be a very overwhelming experience. And as a result, then people begin to withdraw. Something that was meant to be a pleasant time eventually then becomes a very overwhelming experience for many people during this time.
So you speak of expectations from other people. How much of a role do societal expectations and pressures during this holiday season contribute to those feelings of anxiety and depression?
Yeah, they contribute quite a lot. And I guess it also has to do a lot with each individual, how they deal with it. Some of us, we are very susceptible to wanting to please people. So what drives me is to be able to receive acknowledgement, validation, people recognize my efforts and so forth. So because of that, I'm easily susceptible to critique from others, and also self-critique, because then I have certain expectations of myself, and then I begin to also project those expectations on other people. It's not necessarily because, it's not always because people are expecting so much from us, but we are expecting a lot from us, and then we think that people expect so much from us, our families, our friends, and then we begin to measure ourselves based on what other people might think. But a lot of it is just in our mind. A lot of it is just because of we are too concerned about what other people think about us. And that can be quite overwhelming, because you cannot really control what people think about you. yes, you can kind of have an influence on that based on how you behave yourself, or how you conduct yourself, but then you can't really control. Some people might just not like you. And one needs to learn to be able to be okay with that. And that has a lot to do with, how do you view yourself as a person? How do you view yourself as competent, or do you need other people to view you as competent in order to feel competent, for example? So that's when then the social pressure can become a little bit overwhelming for many individuals.
Who are looking for validation. So if I'm an individual, or I've identified someone in my family who could possibly be going through festive depression, what symptoms should I be looking out for? How do I identify that what it is that they're experiencing is indeed depression?
Okay, so there is certain basic things related to depression that help us identify what depression is. The first one is a persistent low mood. So this is not just a sadness because I'm disappointed that I didn't receive that job that I was looking forward to. This is a sadness that persists, and the sadness that is unrelenting. So throughout my day, I'm just low and sad. And oftentimes when I engage this person, let's say I'm a friend of a family or a family member, as I speak to them, I often just feel this heaviness. I just feel so heavy. I feel like this person is just so demanding and they're just so low. I feel like I need to pull them out. That feeling of heaviness is oftentimes an indication that this person might have a bit of a problem. And that person stops, they oftentimes isolate themselves. It's either they experience insomnia or hypersomnia, meaning they sleep too much or they sleep little, their appetite gets affected. And because of course, those things, either not sleeping at all or not eating at all, it affects your energy levels. So the person is constantly fatigued. They struggle to concentrate. And also when someone starts feeling or expressing hopelessness, feeling like there is no hope, feeling like the way they view their job, the way they speak about their relationships, they're just like very down and very negative. That might be a good indication that this person might be depressed and this person might need some kind of professional intervention.
Is this unique to certain communities? Is this a phenomenon that transcends culture, race, and belief?
It certainly is one that transcends culture, race, and beliefs. It is very common it doesn't really matter what kind of background you come from, what kind of social class you come from. Are you wealthy? Are you poor? It doesn't really matter what your status is in that sense. So it is a phenomenon that's prevalent across all kinds of even religions. Some people are religious, some are not. But mental health doesn't really. I always tell people that it is not a respect of persons. It doesn't really care what your background is. It is just by virtue of you being human, you can feel depressed. You can experience depression. Of course, once you have some support structures in place, like religion, it does kind of help mitigate that because it gives you a sense of hope. It gives you a sense of purpose, which is in a sense, a contrast of what depression is. So that can help become a protective measure. But depression really and mental health doesn't take into account what your background is, your race or culture. It is persistent. Consistent throughout.
So if you've then identified that you have some of these symptoms of depression, be it festive withdrawal or just depression as a whole, what practical strategies can one use in order to cope with these feelings, especially during this time?
I mean, during this time, one of the big things and one of the biggest weapons of depression is oftentimes depressed people like to isolate. So they isolate from others. And of course, when you isolate, it becomes a little bit more severe because now you're just alone with your thoughts and you're stuck in your view on this particular matter, for example. But when you're with others, it is a good and can be a very healthy distraction. So you're not ruminating, you're not overthinking, you're not overcomplicating things. So then one needs to learn to stay connected. Reach out to your friends, reach out to supportive family members. And I mean, even in today's age with technology, it doesn't have to be, you don't literally physically need to be there. Is you can take a phone call, you can WhatsApp someone, you can video call someone. So to just try and stay connected. And also trying to be very intentional about setting specific boundaries for yourself. Do not avoid overcommitting to things, especially during this time with so many things happening. You see someone on Instagram doing something, suddenly you want to do it. But really, that's not what you genuinely want to do. You're doing it because someone else is doing. So try and set those boundaries for yourself. Don't overcommit to certain things, and practice self-care. Is funny enough, during this time, a lot of people, those who run, those who go to gym, they forget about that. But those are the things that keep us sane. Someone after a long day at work, they're like, "Phew, I need to go to the gym to take out some steam." It's even during this time, some of those healthy habits, we need to continue with them to keep healthy and connected. And also, I mean, there is professional help, and there's certain platforms. For example, SADC, the South African Depression Anxiety Group. That's a platform that's free and it's available 24/7. There's a helpline. You can just quickly Google it, and it'll pop up. You can get a call. You can call someone if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling suicidal, if you're feeling like you just a lot is happening and you can't take it. Is you can contact these kind of helplines, the hotlines on. You can find them the contact details online.
This is also a time where a lot of people enjoy a drink or two, especially just to wind down. But how then do you recognize if one is binge drinking? How do individuals recognize these patterns within themselves?
Yeah. Well, first, it's important to just kind of describe what binge drinking is. So, in a sense, binging is overindulging in something. So you are either binge eating or binge watching a series. It's overindulging. So it's a large amount, like a large quantity of something in a small space of time. So that's what binge drinking really is you're drinking a lot of alcohol within a short space of time, be it a day, be it a weekend, be it at a specific event, at a party. And how you can identify a binge drinking is, you're drinking with the intentions of getting drunk. So this is a little bit different from drinking as a way of relaxing or just staying calm, but you're drinking with the intentions of getting drunk. And when you're drinking, you just have a sense that you are unable to stop yourself. So you can't bring yourself to stop. And then things like blackouts. So when you drink, you completely forget what happened. During that day, you just surprised. Tomorrow, someone tells you, or you wake up somewhere, you're like, how did I get here? That is a sign of binge drinking. And also drinking to cope. Let's say you are stressed about something and then you're drinking a lot to cope with that thing. And also some of the side effects or after effects of binge drinking is oftentimes then you feel guilty or you feel a sense of shame related to your drinking habits. So after that hangover, after you're feeling down and disappointed and upset with yourself and blaming yourself and you feel a little bit ashamed, you can't even face people, that is a good indication that you might have actually been binge drinking.
So lastly, Reginald, I mean, you already touched on it in terms of the self-care practices. You said we shouldn't overcommit in order not to get ourselves all entangled up in certain things that would lead to depression. What other self-care practices would you recommend?
I think one thing that one cannot, overemphasize, something that needs to be drilled into us is learning to take time to ourselves, especially during this time where you're entertaining your in-laws, you're entertaining your friends, you kind of lose track of yourself at that particular moment. It's important to take some time to yourself to reflect, to kind of unwind, to just be with yourself, to be with your thoughts, to be able to reflect on what's happening around you. So journaling, for example, some people like to journal. Some people like to meditate. Just take time out and And the good thing is all of these things are available on YouTube. If you don't know how to meditate, just go on YouTube. They will give you step-by-step guidelines, breathing techniques, all of these things you can find online. You can train yourself to breathe, because oftentimes when a lot is happening, you're anxious, you're overwhelmed, your breathing gets affected, not enough oxygen pumped into your brain, and helping you calm down, taking in those deep breaths, supplies your body with enough oxygen. So some of those simple but very fundamental techniques can be very helpful in taking care of yourself.
Most certainly.
And also, if you have a therapist, for example, it's always important when a lot of these things are happening, stay in contact with your therapist. Or if you're not, then you're feeling overwhelmed, it's maybe not a bad idea to consider receiving professional help.
And speaking to someone. Reginald, thank you so much for your inputs. It certainly is going to help a lot of those that are experiencing festive blues. And we certainly do hope that many will go into the new year rather refreshed mentally. That's Reginald Mahlatji, who's a clinical psychologist, speaking to us there about festive depression. We're going for a quick ad break. We'll be back with more after this.